So, over the years of working as a professional matchmaker and a date coach, I have seen people from all shapes and sizes, from all walks of life, like rich, poor, and everything in between. And the one thing I will tell you is that love is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter how pretty you are, it doesn't matter how anything. It really comes down to if you are congruent in yourself, obviously hitting some timing aspects, and really putting effort in making it a priority. Because if even if you got the love of your life that showed up in an Amazon Prime box that you delivered for 2 days and they showed up at your door, if you're not ready for it, then it's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to see them. And if you're not ready, then it's just going to spin in circles. So I always tell people there are some things that you can do in addition to going on dating apps, getting in matchmaking pools, like asking to be set up by friends, and et cetera, all the stuff for like making action to find somebody. But there are some things that sometimes we need to rewire in our brain. So I have some tips of where to start. The first thing you need to stop doing is using limiting language, like all the good ones are taken, or all the good guys are, all the good ones are gay, or all the hot girls are crazy, or all of these like language patterns of what you believe to be true based on what you've only seen so far in your life. Because I guarantee that there are women out there who aren't crazy. You just haven't met them yet. I guarantee that there are good guys out there. You just haven't met them yet. So now you have extrapolated your perception to be the entire reality of the world. And now this is the world that you're living in. So it's very important to understand that the words that we speak become the actions we live. So if we start thinking all of these thoughts that like, oh, everything's terrible and my life is over and I'm never going to meet anybody, so then great. So your life is terrible. You're never going to meet anybody and your life is over. Is that what you want? Then be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself, because I guarantee that's not what you want. And even, outside of relationships, what we choose to focus on grows. So if we decide to only see the negative things in this world, then we will only see the negative things in this world. It kind of reminds me of like if you're ever food shopping and you're looking for this new item that you've never heard of before, and suddenly it's all you see now. You see it in every grocery store, you see it on Amazon Prime, you see all over the place. Or if you're shopping for a car and it's like you're looking for that gray Subaru, and then all of a sudden, all the time now you're driving, all you see are gray Subarus, because it's what you shine your light on, so to speak, like what your perception and what your perspective of the world is. So if you don't have a positive perspective on love, if you have this broken idea that like love doesn't exist and love isn't for you, it's for everybody else, then you're always going to be that person outside of the party, just watching everybody else have fun. And that's not what you want. So be mindful of your perception, how you speak to yourself, how you speak about love to others, and the truths that you're telling yourself and what is actually real and what you've made it to be real in your mind. Okay, the second pitfall I see is when people start to emulate bad dating patterns because they're angry. And then they're like, well, someone did that to me, so why can't I do it to them? And we have this bad dating karma cycle going on. So ghosting is one of them, backburning is another one, breadcrumbing people, all of that. Because you could be doing this to somebody. You could have someone on the hook that you don't really want to be in a relationship with, but you're looking for something else. And that's still negative energy that you're putting out there. So if you're not like, keeping in good energy, putting good dating habits out there and trying to propel that positivity, then how do you ever expect it's going to come back to you? Because two wrongs don't make a right. So if someone ghosts you, it doesn't mean you ghost the next person. It means you grow up, you tell them why you didn't like them, you move on. And it doesn't need to be harsh, but it does need to be honest. Because if we all started acting and treating each other with just a shred of dignity and just a minuscule of honesty of why we're not interested in seeing them, it's possible that we could learn something. And that maybe we could do something different next time. So just food for thought. Think about your dating karma cycle and if you are actually putting out there what you're seeking to get in return. Okay, the next pitfall I see is when people are expecting this like fireworks show when they first meet somebody and they're looking for like this ridiculous chemistry and passion like right on the first date. Now, a lot of times chemistry does grow and you need to have something, you need to have something that you want to see this person again. I'm not saying that you just like have this lump on a log and there's nothing there and you think that they're disgusting and that they were rude to you, that you should just give them a second date. But if you went on a date and they didn't repel you, they were polite and they were nice and they made you laugh and there was maybe something more to explore instead of just cutting it off at the knees and saying like, oh, well, I didn't have that it factor. It wasn't the spark. I didn't feel sparks. Sparks to me are when two people are authentically themselves and that they allow that sort of like give and take in the conversation. And sometimes people don't feel comfortable enough on that first date for those things to happen. So a lot of times they'll just say, oh, there was no sparks. No, move on to the next. And what really has to happen is like people taking the mask off and really seeing each other. And maybe that takes a few dates, but because we're in this like rapid pace of just like on to the next, on to the next. Oh, I didn't like him. I didn't like him. I didn't like her. I didn't like her. Then we're just like missing out on all these people. And so I think the number one thing that you really need to start thinking about is, why am I chasing instant sparks? Who told me that instant sparks is the only way to fall in love? Because I'm going to tell you something right now. There are so many clients that I worked with over the years who weren't like wowed right away, but they weren't not wowed, if that makes sense. They were more neutral. They're like, yeah, they were okay. It was nice. Like, so give it a chance, like what you get out is what you give. So if you go in there like, I don't know, but they didn't impress me. Well, did you impress them? Did you put any effort into it at all? Because I'll tell you, there is a difference showing up, acting like this, just waiting for somebody to impress you versus staying open, making effort, like engaging a little bit, seeing if you can get somebody out of their shell and vice versa. Because God damn it, it's nerve wracking to go on these first dates and everybody's had their feelings hurt and everybody's been rejected. And we have so many walls up that we don't even know where to begin sometimes. So why don't you just take a chance? Let someone in. Be yourself. Drop the guard down. Just be like, maybe this isn't going to go anywhere, but maybe I'm just going to show up who I am and see if that makes them want to be with me. Because if you show up authentically yourself, that's when sparks happen. That's when you get the goosebumps and the feel good feelings. And you're just like, oh my God, maybe this could be something. Because that's what rapport is. When we're in with rapport with somebody, it's like that hypnotic state where time just flows away. And rapport happens when we match and mirror each other. So when somebody instantly is like you, like when you meet someone and they're just like you instantly like them because we tend to like people who are like ourselves. It's just the way the human mind works. So if you're meeting somebody and you're closed off and they don't even feel that ability to go back and forth with you, then they're not going to be themselves either. Dating is a two-way street. So you don't just get to go on dates and say, oh, they didn't impress me. There was no sparks. Well, did you show up? Were you trying, or were you just assuming and expecting somebody to just wow you? Because if you're like that, then you may need to rethink your dating style because your expectations that you're putting on other people are way too high. You could be missing out on someone that could rock your world if you gave them a little bit of time and space to let them be themselves and for you to show up fully as well. Okay, another pitfall that I see that really doesn't serve anybody is backsliding to an ex when you're lonely, or if you had a heartbreak, or you just broke up, or whatever. Usually the reason why you broke up the first time is the reason you're going to break up the second, third, fourth, and fifth time if you go that far. Now, it is nice and comfy because you're familiar with them and you've been there before, but it doesn't mean it's good for you. Regressing into old patterns is an escape. So as soon as you start going back to the ex, now you're regressing. Now you're moving backwards. Now you're saying, I want to go backwards and feel something that was comfortable then, even though I know it's not good for me now. And what that will do is turn your head upside down and spin you in circles. And then you're going to have to heal from them again. So even if you think that you can just casually hook up with an ex, it's very difficult to casually hook up with an ex because there's so much emotion between the two of you. It'd be much better to just meet somebody on Tinder and be like, hey, do you want to have a one night stand with somebody that you're never going to talk again versus somebody that you have a pre-existing relationship with pre-existing feelings that can reopen these Pandora's box of emotions that you shouldn't have to deal with again. And you don't have to, it's a choice. So remember, and I say this because I've done it and I was so mad when I did it because I was so angry after the fact. It felt good in the moment and then you're fucking pissed. You're like, why did I do that? And the reason is because, and I said this before, the reason you broke up the first time is usually the reason you break up the second, third, fourth, and fifth time. So you need to remember and write this down on a piece of paper, why you broke up. Why it wasn't good. Because the more time goes, the rose-colored glasses come on and we start looking back and like, oh, but he was so cute. He was so sweet. And you start forgetting all of the reasons why it didn't work out. And that's the funny thing about the human mind. It gets very selective in what it chooses to remember. So you need to be in charge of your own memories and write it down on a piece of paper and be like, we broke up because of X. They aren't changing because of why. And unless they had some transformative experience and you both had the come to Jesus moment and you worked it out together and you can tangibly tell that they're different, please stop backsliding to exes. All it does is hold up your present energy with someone from your past that doesn't allow you to be open to somebody from your present. The next mistake I see singles make is when they don't make dating a priority and when they don't find a proactive way to find dates. When they're just like, oh, it'll come to me when it's ready, or he'll just come when, like it's just gonna happen. No, it's not gonna happen because even when I met my husband, people say, oh, but it was just this magical circumstance that you met each other. Hell no, was it a magical circumstance? Yes, it was on one hand. But the amount of effort that he and I did to work on ourselves to be ready for that moment that we met, and the amount of steps that I took in self-development that brought me to the right people, that led me to him, like it was a series of events that we both decided to say, I understand that I'm single and I am going to make every effort to do something different. Like I even remember him saying, I'm not going to find somebody in the area where I live. I need to go outside of there. And me as well. I wasn't happy with the type of people that were in environment, and we met long distance, and it was difficult and it was amazing all at the same time. But like just when you see two people come together in that moment and you think that's that magical moment that just happened to happen, what about all the stuff that happened before then? What about all their heartache? What about all their growth? What about all their openness that they've now decided to, unwind and develop? Like you don't see all of that. You're just looking at that one moment. It's like when you see someone that's really successful on the internet, you're like, oh, they just like fell into good luck. No, they probably have been working at it their entire life, have been rejected constantly and lost a ton of money and continued to fail and got back up and brushed themselves off. And you didn't see all of that. You just saw the success. So I always think like, look behind the curtain, ask people like, how long did it take you to meet this person? What was it like? What did you do? Because if you don't start making your dating life a priority, who else is going to do it? So like I said this before in a previous video, treat your dating life like you would your job, because I work with so many professionals that are like top dog in their field, but they don't put that same effort into their love life. But if they did, imagine what it would be like. Think about it like money management. Diversify, diversify, diversify. So like get in the dating apps and give it your all. Don't be like, oh, dating apps suck. Yeah, they are difficult and you do need to go through a lot of garbage before you meet some great people, but there's gems on there. And then you can get in matchmaking pools. I don't know why people don't know this. This is like the hidden gem of dating that you can get in databases for matchmakers who will be able to see you and match with their paying clients. And it's free. So like 3-Day Rule does it, Talkify does it, Selective Search does it. There's a lot. You can research the internet and find a lot of dating matchmaking pools in your area. Those are nationwide ones that I mentioned. And like that's something in the background that could be happening. And one day they could call you and say, hey, we have a match for you. And boom, there you go. Right? So asked to be set up by friends, networking on, groups, getting on Clubhouse and talking to, people on there, like-minded people. There's a lot of ways that you can start engaging with people, even in a time during COVID. But if you don't make it a priority, nothing will ever change about it. It's like if you wanted to get promoted at work, but you make absolutely no effort to do it. And then you're just mad you're not promoted. Like, would you do that? No, that's crazy. So don't do the same thing with your dating life. Okay, the next pitfall I see is when people doubt their worth when people they like don't like them back. This happens a lot on dating apps because you're reaching out and you like somebody and you match and then you never hear from them again and you think that they just don't like you, or you started a conversation, then they disappeared or they unmatched you, or then they just never came back and you're just like, well, I'm, terrible and I must be ugly and they must be talking to somebody hotter, and like all that little monkey brain nonsense starts creeping up in the back and you're here, and all of a sudden before you know it, you're like in your bathtub eating a bunch of ice cream, just like crying that you're going to be alone forever. Maybe that's a dramatization. Maybe it's real. No comment. All I'm saying is there does take a lot of grit to be on dating apps because the amount of rejection is very real. However, I think you do need to justify and think it through in a logical way before jumping to these conclusions and then blaming yourself. Most of the time, things that happen to people are a reflection of what's happening from the person doing it. Now, things on dating apps that can also happen is they might not see the message. A lot of these things, they disappear after 24 hours. People don't use them that much. And that's why like you can't take it that seriously. I always tell people, you can't get emotions involved with somebody on a dating app with someone you've never even met yet, even if you started talking to them, until you actually are in person and you have something between you. Then you can start to think about, what this person likes and if it's, it's a good fit or not. But it's like just a stranger that you just matched with on an app, like that's a fantasy. It's a potential. It's an idea of somebody. It's not real. And you don't even know if this person is real. Maybe they're catfishing you. Maybe they broke up with their ex and they're just like exploring with their friends and they're drunk one night and then they're going to get off the app the next day. Maybe they're just not emotionally available, period. Maybe they matched with you and their friend knows you and you don't even know that. There are so many other logical reasons why somebody is not choosing to be with you outside of your worth because they don't know you enough yet. And the other thing is, like, you also have to understand that even if you go on a date with somebody and it turns out to not go anywhere, it could just be a sign of compatibility. Like instead of just being like, oh, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're just not a match. So as much as you can take out that, like putting your emotion into it and like putting your worth into the idea that someone else likes you or not, like it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Okay. And so at some point you need to say, do I like them? Are they somebody of value for me? And you need to start assessing them with that different switch, that paradigm shift. Instead of do they like me, is do I like them? And that is going to set you apart because it'll put you into a state of observation. Because the more we observe, the more we're at a place of power. The more we react, the more we lose our power. And this is what we learn in meditation, right? We are working to be observers so that we can be in a calm state and just see things from a distance. Because when we're not like that and we're so tied in and our emotions are getting the best of us, then we're ramping ourselves up and we could create realities that don't exist in our brain. You don't even know these people yet. And even if you did know somebody and they broke your heart because they didn't want to be with you anymore, it wasn't your person, and you can be sad and you can, have your time to grieve it. But at the end of the day, you need to be happy that you are not with somebody that doesn't love you the way you need to be loved. And so we need to be grateful for that when we have something end, it's like, okay, thank you for your time. Whether you say it to yourself, whether you say it to them, but like, thank you for your time. Thank you for showing me some things that I loved and some things that weren't right for me, because we want to be with somebody who likes us back. That's hot. So if you are chasing after people that don't like you back and then spiraling because of it, you got to do some inner reflection. You need to start separating yourself a little bit. You need to start changing your paradigm to be the observer, not the reactor, and the one seeing, are they right for me, instead of asking, do they like me? That's the switch. That's the switch. Switch. Okay, the last thing that I see that I think holds singles back from finding love is when they judge people before even meeting them. I would see this a lot in matchmaking. I see it a lot on dating apps. It's hard to not do this because we as people just judge. That's just who we are. And we have an idea a lot of times of like who our type is and who we're best suited with. But sometimes people can surprise us as well. So if you find yourself on dating apps, like scrolling and like making like wide sweeping judgments, which I get it. Okay. Sometimes there are reasons why there are stereotypes for a reason, but you're like, oh my God, I hate his hat. Oh, look at his friends. Oh, look at how much he's drinking. Oh, look at this. Like, you don't actually know this person yet. So you're not making assumptions about somebody that you know absolutely nothing about. So, and you can also have to think about that not everybody is great at representing themselves on dating apps properly. Okay. Because that's what a dating app is. It's like how you're representing yourself to the world. And some people are really crappy at it, because I've met some amazing singles and they look at their dating profile and I cringe. I'm like, oh my God, you look like such a douche. And then I meet them and they're lovely. And it just comes down to like not being represented properly. So if you are on the dating apps or you are doing some things like matchmaking, like leave some room to be surprised and leave some room to not judge somebody so quickly just on things like their hairline or where they went to school or like these little tiny things. Like we have to give people the room and space to surprise us, because if we don't do that, then you're consistently going to be judging people before you meet them and then making up these preconceived notions about somebody and not doing anything with it. Like that doesn't open you up for a lot of expansive conversation or expansive dating. It's just shutting things down. And yes, we do need to be mindful. Like, yeah, if your bottom line is you're Jewish and you need somebody to be Jewish and you're on an app and you see that they're not, that I get. But to just say like, oh, I just don't like the way he did his hair that day, or like, oh, look at his clothes, or look at his shoes, or his dog is stupid, or like all these little stupid things that don't matter. Like that's just somebody that's making up excuses because they're not ready to date. So if you're doing that, you might need to do some deeper thinking. Are you truly ready to date if you're coming up with all these excuses on why these people aren't right with you before they even met you? So some food for thought. But I just want you all to be successful. And that's why I want you to do some inner thinking, because we have to take ownership of our participation in how we're finding love instead of blaming other people for not finding it. Good luck out there.